the drive, gets inside, leads in, knocked away and stolen by Holiday. Phoenix has the foul, and a foul, throws it down, and a foul. Working against Butler, got downhill, couldn't punch it, Bam says get it out of here. Adebayo, sky high with the block and rejection. That's why he's NBA All-Defensive Team. To Caldwell Pope inside, he's tied up by Green. Throws it back up top, James puts up the three. Oh, it's gone! LeBron James from downtown as the shot clock expires.
Gets it into Durant. Here is Durant moving on Tucker. He turns, he shoots.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are live here from Deep from Three. As always, I'm Devin Withers. Today, alongside Isaiah Hanson. Isaiah, you just came from Free Baseball, and now you're right here with Deep from Three. How you feeling after today?
Literally, we went extra innings over there almost, so I had to wrap it up quick, and here we are, right into extra quarters, it seems like.
There you go, a little overtime for you. Well, listen, we got a great show for you guys today. If you're paying attention, we got a lot of new content coming over out on the athletehub.org. You just heard me mention it. Make sure you're checking us out over at Free Baseball, which starts about 4 o'clock every single Monday as well. We usually go back-to-back shows. We get Isaiah there alongside Jake and Davis from our team. They do a great job with a lot of different features over there. Today's going to be an interesting one, though. Isaiah, no basketball action today, but tomorrow starts the play-in tournament, and then after that, it's playoff basketball is back with the fans in there. How excited are you going to be for that?
Not as excited as I thought I would be, simply because like two of the main protagonists are not there. I guess we'll get to that later, but yeah, let's do it. Greek Freak, the Warriors. I'm ready. Not for playing, but hey, the Brooklyn Nets. I'm ready for it. Possibly Ben Simmons coming. Let's do this, man. I'm ready.
Anything can happen, and so in today's show, at least, we're going to be talking about the play-in tournament. We're going to be talking about our predictions, who we have in that first round. Obviously, we got the Cleveland Cavaliers going up against the Brooklyn Nets. We got the LA Clippers against the Timberwolves. We got the Hornets against the Hawks. And then it rounds out with the San Antonio Spurs going up against the New Orleans Pelicans. And then we're going to be talking about, per usual, my Lakers. What's going on with them this offseason? What's their biggest priority? Because just today, our good friend Gary Sunnyberger, who is not here, unfortunately, he's traveling. He tried to be here as much as possible, but he just came out with an article today, and it talks about the Lakers' biggest offseason priorities. I thought it was a great piece, and it's gotten a lot of viewership. I advise everyone to go out to theathletehub.org, check that out. I want to hear what everyone else's thoughts are about the Lakers' biggest offseason priority, and then we're just going to wrap up the show, talk about what we believe are our biggest regular season surprises. But before we do any of that, let's go all the way back. Let's talk about this play-in tournament. Isaiah, we're going to start off with what I believe. I don't know about you, but I think this is going to be the matchup to watch in the play-in, just because the Brooklyn Nets are hosting the Cleveland Cavaliers. The storyline is there. Kyrie going up against his former team. Kevin Durant has to put the team on his back. Is Ben Simmons going to come back at some point? Talk to me a little bit about this matchup. What are you sort of looking forward to with this? And then what's your prediction? Who you got winning this one?
Well, I'm kind of sad actually heading into this one because I feel bad because look, the Cleveland Cavaliers have put on a great show this year. I'm in on Darius Garland. Like, I think that guy is so good. They got the new Lob City in Cleveland. Jared Allen's there. I've been rooting for him. He was dumped off by Brooklyn, and that's another storyline right there. And now he's a big part there. In my opinion, that's a big part. And you got, of course, Kevin Love, who has slotted into something relevant again. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are really fun to watch. But let's not kid ourselves. I mean, come on. Look, this is Kevin Durant. This is Kyrie Irving going. You just said it. He's going back to Cleveland. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go out. They're going to perform. I'm sorry. Like, I never say 100%, but I got like 95%. Now, would I be bewildered if the Cavaliers beat the Nets? Yes, yes, I would. But they could do it. They bewildered us all this season with their performances so far, and the future is bright. But the immediate future, is kind of dark. It's going to end tonight. But they had a good season. What do you think, Dev? What do you think? Come on, don't.
It's interesting because if I'm being honest with you, I think these might be the two best teams in the play-in tournament, right? The Cleveland Cavaliers have a lot of size. Evan Mobley, I think, is the rookie of the year. People want to argue for different players, but I think it's Evan Mobley. And then on the other side, you get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, which in and itself, they're going to be a contender. There was a reason in the last show that I talked about the odds of the Brooklyn Nets. They had one of the best odds to represent the East. They had better odds than the number one Miami Heat, who were listed as the fifth best odds. And we all saw how Gary reacted to that. We saw how nervous he was, Isaiah. He doesn't think that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be able to.
That's why he's not here today.
Yeah, he was a little worried, and rightfully so, right? Because those are two players, Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, that alone, the other one doesn't even need to be on the court, and one of them has the ability to just take over a game. Tell me who on the Cleveland Cavaliers is going to take over the game in a playoff setting? Who has that experience of the ball in their hands? Darius Garland, like you said, phenomenal player, completely disrespected, underrated. Yes. I don't know if I'm putting my money on the Cleveland Cavaliers to go into Brooklyn in a playoff setting, game on the line, your spot in the postseason on the line. I'm not putting my trust in the Cleveland Cavaliers. But with that being said, I don't think it's going to be a blowout. If you're someone who bets against the spread per se, the Brooklyn Nets at home this season is going to astonish you as a 5-26-1 against the spread this season. Brooklyn just has not been efficient at home. Granted, they're riding a 4-game win streak going into this play-in tournament. One of those wins happened to be against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They ended up winning 118-107. They're a high-scoring team. They got a lot of ways that they can kill you with size, with shooting, anything they choose to do. But the one part that I think is going to kill the Cleveland Cavaliers in this game is the fact that they don't play at a fast enough pace. They play at the 6th slowest pace in the league. You cannot succeed unless you're transitioning the ball efficiently. That's why I also have the Brooklyn Nets. I think it's safe money. I think they're easily the best team in this play-in tournament by far, their own tier. With that being said, I don't know if this is a team that is built to contend in that Eastern Conference. At one point in time, I would have said yes, but unless I know Ben Simmons is back at 100%, I don't know if I can trust him.
I mean, to briefly respond to that, I mean, the only reason why I would tend to agree with you is just because who they're probably going to face if they win the play-in. But if they can get through the first round, I think the Nets are seriously in play to win the – but, like, that's the main hurdle for me. Like, can you beat the Bucks? That's the main thing. Like, I think they could beat Miami. I'm sorry, guys. I struggle with this. I'm going back and forth. Like, I think Miami could beat them, but I think they're going to beat Miami. I mean, I just but the Bucks, I don't know how the seeding is going to work, like, off the top of my head if they happen to face the Bucks.
So I'm looking at it right now. So the Cleveland Cavaliers are going to go to Brooklyn on Tuesday, April 12th. Their game is going to start at 7 o'clock Eastern Standard. It looks like the winner of – I'm trying to figure out – the winner earns the 8th seed and advances to the NBA playoffs is what it looks like.
Okay.
But I thought no. So the winners earn the 7th seed. So in game 1 and game 2, so Cleveland and Brooklyn – the winner of that game will be the 7th seed in the East. And then LA and Minnesota are going to play later that night at 9:30. And the winner is going to then be the 7th seed in the West. So with that being said, if you're the number 2 seed in the East, you're going to end up playing the Boston Celtics in the first round is what it's going to sound like. A 7-game series against the Celtics. I mean, I don't even have this on my script, but you like their chances against the Celtics in a 7-game series?
I think so. I mean, I like their chances against anybody, but
yeah,
I think they could beat Boston, but it's not going to be that easy. But I'm not really concerned about Boston. I'm more concerned for them running into Milwaukee. I think Milwaukee is just built to beat them. And plus, I've been riding the Bucks all season, and I'm not falling off the train. So yes.
Yeah, so I think we're on the same page right there. So we both like Brooklyn in this game. We both like Brooklyn to advance and face the Celtics, and I think it's going to be a competitive series. I agree. You run into the Bucks in that first round, it's probably an issue. Luckily, they're not going to have that issue because they would then end up playing against the Boston Celtics, which I think once again is going to be competitive. As we go into our second matchup, like we talked about later that night on Tuesday, April 12th, is going to be the LA Clippers, a team that I had at the beginning of the season as a team that was going to surprise everybody. I thought that Kawhi was going to come back at some point. I guess not. But Isaiah, talk to me a little bit about the LA Clippers traveling to face Karl Anthony Towns, D'Angelo Russell, Anthony Edwards, the whole entire gang over in Minnesota. What do you think of that matchup?
So I've always said about the Timberwolves, like they're probably the most frustrating team because they have such a good young core, but it's like, they're just always that like one piece away and they just tend to never get it. And I think that's still going to be the case this time around. I mean, they should win this game. They should. Like they kind of outnumber the Clippers in a sense. Like, but Paul George, he's been here before and he doesn't look to have missed a step. He's rested, and the Clippers do have something to prove. Okay, if I told you, if we did not see how the season has planned out, and I just said, hey, look, Kawhi is down, but everybody else is going to be healthy, we would have still had the Clippers maybe in a sixth or I don't know. I personally would have 6th seed, 7th seed. So I expect them to knock it off, but it's not a slam dunk as it is for the Nets, in my opinion. This could truly go either way, but I just think once you get to the late game situation, Paul George, they have a unit. Reggie Jackson, I don't know. I haven't checked the health report, but
Yeah.
Reggie Jackson, they got some really good pieces. They're not going to do much in the playoffs, in my opinion, but I do expect them to knock off the Timberwolves, that being, of course, the Clippers knocking them off.
And once again, I mean, me and you didn't talk about these matchups beforehand. We just picked our winners. And on my thing as well, I thought you were going to take the Timberwolves. I really thought you were going to ride with Cat right here. And so I went the opposite way because, like I said, beginning of the season, I want to ride the Clippers. I want to see out this prediction. I want them to secure their playoff spot. Fun fact, they've made the NBA playoffs, not just the play-in tournament, but the actual playoffs in 10 of the last 11 seasons. If they make it this year, it would mark 10 seasons in the last 11 years that they've made the playoffs. Amazing culture that they've built right there. Dare I say a better culture than the Lakers have as of late. And then, of course, a name we're forgetting about is Norman Powell, who since being acquired in February by the Clippers has only played in 3 games. He's expected back for the playoffs, so that's going to be a huge boost to that lineup, add some shooting and some defense, a little two-way action right there. The Clippers are also riding a 5-game win streak going into this, and despite being 17-24 on the road this season, I also like the Clippers in a close contest right here on the road. I think that the Clippers are going to match up pretty well in the playoffs, and so right here, though, is where I have an issue. If you're the LA Clippers and you win this game, and what did we say? You have to go up against the number 2 seed. You get Ja Morant, who we all agreed last time is going to be the most improved player. That would be absolutely electric, that matchup.
Yeah.
Right.
I was just going to say, I mean, of course, I got the if that were to happen, I do have Ja Morant pulling that one off. But you basically got Ja versus PG right there. That's
big.
That's a series to watch. So let's hope.
Yeah, and what's crazy too is I think you would agree right here, but if I'm playing any of the top 3 teams in a 7-game series from the Western Conference between the Suns, the Grizzlies, and the Warriors, give me the Grizzlies every day of the week, twice on Sunday. I would gladly take that over the playoff experience that the Warriors have, and what the Suns have been able to do this season is scary good. So I'll take the Grizzlies in that matchup. You isolate Ja Morant, take him out of the game. It's going to be interesting. I think the Clippers have a chance without Kawhi. You're basically trusting in, he calls himself playoff Paul, but he has been anything but in years past. It seems like people have made a mockery out of his inefficiency. So I wonder if this will be the opportunity for Paul George if he knocks off the Memphis Grizzlies, ranked number 2 in the West. That's got to save his legacy to some degree, right?
Indeed. Yeah, I was just going to say, he has a lot to prove. I will say I hate to do this to him because he's just coming off an injury. I don't want to set him up, but like you kind of have to get it done this time. Like maybe not like I wouldn't be so mad if they lose, but you better not be the reason. You better not pull a James Harden out there. You got to do something. And I like Paul George, man. I don't mean to, step on anything. But real quick, I actually want to ask you a question. We didn't talk about this either. So look, I do have the Clippers favored today, right? But if the Timberwolves do win, do you like their chances versus the Grizzlies more than you do the Clippers? Because I trust the Clippers to beat the Timberwolves, but man, it'll be like 3-on-1 at that point, with John Morant. Not to sneeze at his teammates, but
you would like the Timberwolves, I feel like, more because of the name value, but at the same time, I don't really trust what Minnesota has done in the past. Like, they added Anthony Edwards through the draft, but aside from that, like, this is a team that has been extremely, extremely inefficient when it comes to the playoffs. They've had a very long drought over the recent years. I like Cat versus Steven Adams down low. Steven Adams isn't even at 100%. And then you look at the rest of the Grizzlies lineup, literally John Morant day-to-day with his injury, Dylan Brooks day-to-day, Jaren Jackson Jr. day-to-day, Steven Adams day-to-day, Tyus Jones day-to-day. This is not a healthy team. I like both of these teams, both the Clippers and the Timberwolves. I don't know if I would favor them or put my money on them against the Grizzlies, but I think that it is upset possibility for a number 7 to knock off a number 2 in this case. That's a good question. That's a coin flip either way. I don't think it's going to be an easy series for the Grizzlies at all. I think it's going to go at least 6, if not 7 games.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so we jump into the second day of action. So this is going to be the following day. We're going to get the Charlotte Hornets versus the Atlanta Hawks. I got to tell you, before the season started, if you told me that the Atlanta Hawks are going to go all the way from the Eastern Conference semifinals all the way down to needing to play for their lives against the Charlotte Hornets in the play-in tournament, I would have thought you were crazy. But talk to me about this: LaMelo Ball and Miles Bridges versus Trae Young. I know you're not the biggest Hawks fan in the world, coming from a Knicks city, but talk to me a little bit about this matchup.
Yes, of course, you know who I'm rooting for. I definitely want the Charlotte. Look, the way I see this is like a Marvel movie, and at the end of the usually have like a credit scene, and they show you like the preview of what the future is gonna like, the future movie is gonna look like. That's what the Hornets are in this case. Like, they're gonna be back, and they are gonna be a factor in my opinion as LaMelo progresses. You got Bridges, Isaiah Thomas is coming back. Just give it a 10. But I think that's basically what this is. Look, say what you want. I mean, I'll say what I want about Trae Young, but he loves these type of moments. Like, he loves these kind of like shut you down, high pressure leverage situations. And I definitely trust him in this case because he's proven. And he gave the Hawks gave every team hell last season. So I expect them to do the same. I don't think the Hornets are quite ready yet, but this will be important for them moving forward. You're going to get some real exposure. I think, of course, they'll be at Atlanta, right? So you're going to feel the heat. This is going to be a really valuable game for your experience, but it's the credit scene. It's at the end. Next season, they'll be much better. So, but not yet.
Yeah, and I'm in the same exact boat. I'm going to take Atlanta in this matchup. Each team, the Hawks and the Hornets, they faced off 4 times in the regular season. Each of them won twice. Really interesting fact, only one of those matchups has been within single digits, the difference. Each of the other ones have been by 10 or more points has been the difference. So I think this is going to be not a blowout, but it's going to be by at least 10 points. I would take the Hawks. Atlanta obviously made the conference semifinals last season, which is a really impressive run given their current roster right now. Charlotte hasn't made the actual playoffs, so we know they made the play-in tournament last season, but making the actual playoffs, they haven't done that since the 2015-2016 season. I think that drought's going to continue, but this leads to an interesting conversation because now these are the 9 and the 10 seeds playing. So if one of these teams wins, then they go on to play the loser of the Nets and the Cavaliers, and the winner of that game would then get the final seed in the Eastern Conference playoffs. So if what we're saying is true, the Brooklyn Nets beat the Cleveland Cavaliers, we're now talking Atlanta traveling to play the Cleveland Cavaliers. Isaiah, that's a crazy matchup. That's if that's not a coin flip, I don't know what is. Do you take Ice Trae Young, or do you take Darius Garland and Evan Mobley and Jared Allen and all those guys? Like, how do you pick that?
I'm so sad because I like the Cavaliers a lot. Like I'm rooting for them, but I value experience a lot. I value like you've been in that battle, you know what it's like. Like they were literally going head to head with the Bucks, and they were, they went to Madison Square Garden, and Trae Young in the faces of me and all of our fans. You know how we are. Literally made us shut up, and like now I'm here picking him over two teams that I really like, and I really don't want to, but it's undeniable. Even in that moment, like if it was, if it was the Hornets to win, of course, I think I'd probably go Cavaliers, but he likes these moments. It's almost better. Like maybe if they were going to Atlanta, maybe I'd feel different, but because they're going against that and there's going to be heat on his head, I just think he thrives off of those situations. It's Ice Trae. I mean, Cleveland's a cold state, right? Or city, I'm sorry. So, unfortunately, it would also be the Hawks. The Cavaliers would be going home. Unless the Hornets can somehow pull this off, then I think the Cavaliers find themselves at that AFC.
Yeah, and it's a tough one, too. I mean, Cleveland in their last 10 games of the regular season were 3-7. All the other teams in the play-in tournament, the Brooklyn Nets were 6-4 during that span. The Hawks are actually the best team over the last 10 games. If you exclude the Toronto Raptors, who have been 8-2, they've actually been the best team in the Eastern Conference based on standing over the last 10 games. They've won 7 of their last 10, and then Charlotte has won 6 of their last 10. It's so tough because Cleveland is the number 8 seed. Like if there was no play-in tournament, they would have a guaranteed spot. But the difference between Cleveland and Atlanta is one game, literally one game. Atlanta this season is 27-14 on the road. And then they would have to travel to Cleveland, who has been, it looks like 25-16 at home. It's
Cleveland.
tough. I mean, dude, that's a coin flip. I mean, Atlanta hasn't been efficient on the road, but in a playoff setting where you need Trae Young to show up, he's showed up in the past. What makes you think that this is going to be any different right here? I think that's going to be a really close matchup, though. I really do think that's going to be a really close matchup. I think that the odds are going to be so crazy close for it that you could bet on the favorite and still make a whole lot of money off of it. I'm probably going to end up taking Cleveland over Atlanta, which would then cause this narrative of, can Trae Young do it by himself, or does he need another guy to join him? I think it creates a really interesting conversation over the offseason. But yeah, man, that's crazy, because then the team that comes out of that game would go up against the number 1 Miami Heat. And don't get me wrong, I don't think the Heat are a number 1 team in the East. I don't think they're even a top 2 team in the East. I think at best they might be a 3. If you're talking about power rankings out there, we're actually going to come out with our own power rankings tomorrow. So everyone's going to have to check that out over the athleteshub.org. But I think either Cleveland or Atlanta would give Miami a hard time at the least. I think Miami comes out on top, but at the same time, Cleveland and Atlanta, man, that's a close matchup. That's a really close matchup.
I gotta say, this play-in tournament is like a love letter to basketball fans, because
Yes.
if you're looking for the flash, the LeBron James, I mean, you're gonna get Kevin Durant, so you're gonna get some of that. But overall, it's gonna be like a gritty tournament, like some just gritty teams, and Trae Young is a gritty player too. So I'm ready for this. I'm ready for it. Let's do it. Baseball's here too, so this is a great time to be a sports fan if you like those too.
It's the best time, and just recently too, we had March Madness going on too. Like that was the peak. That's my peak of sports right there. You get some baseball is on the horizon, and then you get March Madness going. You get basketball is in its prime right there. So it's been perfect. Like this play-in tournament, I really like this adjustment because it gives teams, like I said, if the season ended today and there was no play-in tournament, the Atlanta Hawks would be out of this tournament completely after being 1 game down from both Brooklyn and Cleveland. And as we have it right now, Cleveland would be the number 8 team, but they would end up losing to Brooklyn and the Hawks, and they would be eliminated. I think that's very fair. If you drop 2 games to a 7 seed and a 9 seed, you don't really deserve to be in the playoffs,
Correct.
And so we round out our play-in tournament with a Western Conference matchup that I don't think is gonna. I don't know if it's going to receive enough love. I don't know. It might be a little disrespected. The San Antonio Spurs, Greg Popovich making another run with his team. They snuck in there in the Western Conference. And then the New Orleans Pelicans, who I think without Zion Williamson, everyone thought they were going to finish towards the bottom of the standings, but they've been able to make do with the addition of CJ McCollum. They got Valanciunas over there. They got Brandon Ingram, of course, among other names. Isaiah, talk to me about this because the Spurs, they've won 3 of 4 regular season matchups against the Pelicans, but what happens in this game?
This is a farewell tour to Popovich. I believe, I don't know if it was officially announced that he is going to retire, but I did see a lot of rumors that,
I think he will.
Maryville, yeah. So this is a way for him to go out with his head out high, like, one last shot at it. And it's impressive. I mean, look, it's tough for me to give the Spurs too much credit because if it weren't for one particular team completely being underwhelming, they probably wouldn't be they wouldn't be in the playoffs. So, but I do like Keldon Johnson a lot. I've been holding him in my fantasy basketball team for a couple of years now. So I mean, since he's been in the league. So I like him. Of course, DeJounte Murray. There is something there for the Spurs in the future, but this is maybe more of a testament to Popovich, getting that team at least into a competitive atmosphere. But do I rule them out? No, because you can never rule out Popovich. He might pull out one last, Houdini and come out with the playbook and win this. But the Pelicans, I mean, it is underrated because it's like you don't really trust these guys, like either of these teams, to go much further. Like if they do, like whoever wins. But I think this is a time for the Pelicans. Pelicans need to do it. They got CJ McCollum. I think they're just going to outmatch the Spurs. There's just enough depth there. I'm excited to watch it, but I'm there's a lot of other stuff going on. But yeah, let's go Pelicans.
And it's funny because now we're 4 for 4 because I also took the Pelicans in this matchup. Spurs definitely have the advantage going into this. They won 3 of those regular season matchups against the Pelicans. And then the Pelicans actually averaged almost 110 points per game against the Spurs during those contests. They shot nearly 46% from the field in those contests. So it's not like the Spurs were blowing them out of the water. The Pelicans have been in the game each of those contests. And despite what many think that Brandon Ingram is going to be the guy or CJ McCollum is going to be the guy, I know the Pelicans have been resting guys for this play-in spot. The leading scorer in those games against the Spurs has been none other than Jonas Valanciunas has been taking advantage. He averages almost 18 points per contest in the paint against, the Spurs. And so I think it's going to be a game that ends up in the Pelicans' favor. I think obviously if you had Zion Williamson, your chances are higher. I don't think anyone thinks that the Pelicans are a worse team with Zion on there. But you make a great point. I mean, even if the Pelicans were to win this game, you're going up against, let's say that the Clippers go on and win this game. You now have to go ahead and play against the Timberwolves, and you have to beat the Timberwolves to get that last spot. That's not happening. Even if the Clippers lose, you think Paul George is going to give up his spot in the playoffs to Brandon Ingram? I doubt it.
I don't want to think about that.
Yeah, I don't think either of these teams are actually going to end up in the playoffs. It would take quite a run. I think the better odds say that even though the Spurs have DeJounte Murray, the better odds are probably betting on the Pelicans to make that run. I think they have more names that can shoot the ball, and you're asking for Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum to basically combine for 45, 50 points probably to even have a chance in that second game. And so I like the Pelicans in this game. I like both I like both the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Clippers to actually end up in the playoffs as the 7 and 8 seeds respectively. I don't think that the Spurs and Pelicans are going to have enough gas to get by any teams. Even if they do make the playoffs, I think they get maybe 5 games at most.
Gentleman sweep for sure. That's kind of what I see there. I mean, especially McCollum. I'm still thinking about him stepping out of bounds, with with Damian Lillard last season. I'm still thinking about that. But he's, to his credit, he stepped up. I mean, he's taken, maybe he was just the guy that needed to be the guy. So,
oh yeah.
I'm with you there. There's not much to take from here. But out of respect, I will be watching it for Popovich if this is his last game. I mean, one of the best coaches of our generation, maybe the best of my lifetime. So,
That's probably. Yeah.
you know, give him his credit and his flowers and let him go out, at least not at the bottom of the standings, So,
Absolutely.
like,
And so we transition here, and it's actually perfect because we're right at the halfway mark of our episode today, episode number 16, which sounds crazy. 16 episodes in. And
16.
If you told me 16 episodes ago, Isaiah, that the Los Angeles Lakers were going to be eliminated from the playoffs, you're telling me the Pelicans had a better record. You're telling me the Spurs had a better record. You're telling me the other team in Los Angeles finished better than you. You're asking for a mockery. And here we are. Gary came out with a really, really good piece.
Yes.
If you have the chance to read it, if you haven't read it already, it's on theathleteshub.org. You have to read this because he dives into a lot of issues that the Lakers have, some that I didn't even think about at first. But it was a great read for me, at least this morning, to see that from him. He talks about the Lakers' biggest offseason priorities. So, Isaiah, this begs the question. Gary has about 5 to 10 different issues that you could point out. When you read that article and you look at the different issues that the Los Angeles Lakers have, what is the number one thing that they need to solve this offseason?
Well, first, let's start with the coach. Let's start with the head coach. But I don't know if that's going to do so much for you. Like, I want to it's such a complicated scenario because I don't know if there's like one thing you could do to drastically improve the team. I guess moving Westbrook, but he's kind of started to play decent like the past couple of games. But I guess you have to move him to give you some flexibility. I look at it and it's just like, get Kuzma back. I don't know. Like, there's something you gotta do. The Lakers are a absolute mess right now. Okay, like it's because like there's not much flexibility. You kind of tied your shoe, and now you gotta like walk with it. So maybe hooking up Anthony Davis, making sure he does what he needs to do to stay healthy. Because I do believe if he was healthy with LeBron James, they would be in the playoffs. It's a crazy scenario. Like, sign Carmelo Anthony. You got to do that. There's you guys had one job, and like I tweeted on, and Gary was cracking up. All you had to do was follow the train. Like, you had the blueprint, you had the guys to do it in a way. Like, I know it wasn't the greatest fit, but LeBron James isn't usually enough to figure it out. And by the way, shout out to LeBron James because a lot of people were getting on him. I know you were upset about him sitting. I was too, but at least he's stuck to his guns because he even forfeited his scoring title. So at least he can't say he was in there for the individual awards. He's stuck to his guns. Gary dug in really well, and there's so much to unpack in that article. So you definitely got to check it out because there is so much to unpack. Like, what do you do? I mean, you trade Westbrook, then what? Like, who do you sign? What is the guy? What, Dennis Schroeder is kind of bring him back? I mean, what? I think
was he the missing piece all along, Dennis Schroeder?
So I got to pose the question to you. This is like I did put Lakers therapy in the title. And by the way, this hurts me too. I wanted Carmelo Anthony to get his ring. That was my main motive for you guys. And one thing I just want to note, remember early on in the season, there was an article they were talking about the Lakers in the 9th seed. And we're like, are you kidding me? The 9th seed? And they didn't even do that 10th seed. 10th. No, it's a 10th.
No, 11. 10 to get in the play-in. They finished 11th.
Oh my goodness. This is an embarrassment. I mean, look, I'm one to talk. The Knicks suck too, but at least like we kind of are accustomed to this. But this was
so this is Gary had so much to unpack, and it was one of the better reads that I've seen on our site over the last few weeks. I thought it was really interesting. Maybe it's because I'm a Lakers fan. Maybe it's because I just want to point the fingers at somebody. I gave LeBron his blame a few weeks ago when we did the show together and I sat back and I read it. I don't know if you saw this, but the one tidbit that I'll point out before I even get into what I think the top priority is, did you see in there he put he said you gave up your best two of your best shooters. You gave up Kyle Kuzma and you gave up Kendavius Caldwell-Pope, and you went and got Carmelo Anthony. And then although Carmelo Anthony was productive, He can't be your spot up shooter. I thought of you because I'm like, Isaiah's going to have something to say. You don't disrespect Carmelo. You don't
No, you
disrespect
don't.
one of the greatest Knicks of all time like that.
But you also don't disrespect Kyle Kuzma. So
Yes, you do. That's what you do. You do disrespect Kyle Kuzma. All this being said, I think he makes a lot of good points. You need to add somebody that can shoot the ball. He talks about how even in Cleveland he had Kyle Korver, in Miami he had Mario Chalmers, and he had Ray Allen, all these other guys. In LA, he hasn't really surrounded himself with a guy he can kick the ball out to. I think that is a priority. You have to go sign somebody. I don't think it's going to be Bradley Beal because that's just too much of a stretch unless you're dumping cap space left and right. You have to depart from the link is right there. Obviously, go and read this article. It's a great read by Gary. There's so many issues with this team and so many things that didn't work well. I knew this wasn't going to be a team that worked out well because LeBron James and Russell Westbrook need the ball in their hands, and neither one was, extremely efficient. LeBron, yes, he averaged 30 points a game, but at the same time, it's not all about scoring. It's about getting the ball to the right guy, and it's about doing things both ways. The number of times I've seen LeBron James walk back on defense or pretend like he's hurt laying on the floor, it is like I am watching the Oscars. It is like I'm watching the greatest acting performance of all time. It is an absolute joke, and I need this guy off my team. I really mean this. I don't want LeBron James on the LA Lakers. You leave me alone. You leave my fan base alone. I can't take it. I cannot take it. I really can't. I don't know what to say other than that.
Let me give you a second to take a deep breath. All right, you sound like the Yankee fans right now, okay? Get Aaron Judge off the team. Get this guy off the team. Listen, LeBron James is your meal ticket, okay? If he leaves, this is you're going back to post-Kobe era. That's maybe worse. Where's your caps? What are you going to do? Okay, so look, give me a second. Okay, look, LeBron James, he does still have that thing in him, but you could have had Michael Jordan on this team this year with how things have played out, and I just don't think you would have a different scenario. I will say there was a lot of moments where I was watching the Lakers. LeBron's dribbling up the court, and he just chucks it up from half court for some reason, and they're down by 15. He makes 1 out of 15, but that's not how you win games. So there was definitely a sense of laziness, but you know what it is too, and it goes for the Lakers organization. You take the regular season for granted. You just think you're going to make the playoffs always. You're just going to figure it out somehow, and that's not what happened. So I think next season, maybe the one thing you could fix next year is start taking the regular season a little bit more seriously. I'm talking to LeBron, and I mean LeBron. That's the one criticism I have. But he's just so used to making the playoffs. Do I really have to try to get there? And clearly. The answer is yes.
Yeah, the only thing that LeBron James needs is a retirement plan. That's the only thing this man needs. I'm telling you, did you see the clip? Did you see the clip? It came out a day or two ago. It was one of the Lakers' last games, and LeBron wasn't even playing. He was resting for whatever reason. I get it, you're eliminated, but whatever. You don't want to try. You don't want to get the fans. Go ahead, sit. This man wanted to sit next to Anthony Davis. He kicks Ken Bazemore out of his seat because he was sitting next to AD, and then proceeds to dab everyone up, give them their handshakes and everything like that. Ken Bazemore puts out his hand. LeBron doesn't even acknowledge him. I would bet my life earnings on the fact that Ken Bazemore, you will not be on the team next year. LeBron is cleaning the house completely. Yeah. All this being said, LeBron James isn't even my biggest priority. Sure, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. Sure, you're going to be on the team next year. Granted, you're going to end up, going on your little shop show talking about how you want to play with Steph Curry and where your loyalties really lie. Go ahead and play with your second round, your second round pick son, who's not even a superstar, superstar in the league. Anyways, all this being said, Isaiah, I have a big issue with this vacancy that's at the head coaching position. We just saw Frank Vogel is not going to return to the LA Lakers next year. We saw that it was rumored that he wasn't going to come back early in the season, and now it was already confirmed that that was his last game coaching. He's completely done for. So now there's a huge vacancy. Can you imagine the number of candidates that could at least look at the possibility of, I get to coach LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. I think there's going to be plenty of names at least lined up. How many of those are actually going to be suitors, though? I have two names that can help this franchise and get back to the playoffs next year. name number one. And Lord help the NBA if this man comes over to the LA Lakers. It's a man who's dealing with his own drama in the Western Conference. It's none other than Mr. Quinn Snyder of the Utah Jazz. I would love Quinn Snyder. If the Jazz get eliminated early in this Western Conference playoffs, I think it's a very real possibility that Quinn Snyder comes over to the LA Lakers. You have to remember, Isaiah, Quinn Snyder was at one point an assistant coach for the LA Lakers in that 2011 to 2012 season under Mike Brown at the time. The Lakers were in shambles then. The Lakers are in shambles now. Quinn Snyder, don't leave us again. We need you to come back. We need Quinn Snyder. I really think that's the only head coach that I see taking over. All these other ones are just LeBron James coach teams that end up failing at some point in time. LeBron putting his teams in shambles, and then when the going gets tough, he runs to wherever the most superstars are. That's what he does best and don't give me any other explanation. The other name that I like for the LA Lakers, this one I don't even think is realistic, but it keeps getting brought up. Doc Rivers? Is Doc Rivers a possibility for the Lakers?
I like it.
He signed a 5-year deal with the 76ers, and the 76ers are comfortably in the playoffs right now in a much easier conference in the East. But Doc has been heavily mentioned as a head coach candidate for the LA Lakers. I think Doc would love the opportunity to go get himself a ring because right now it sort of feels like he's in the same gear. At one point with the LA Clippers, they weren't really making any progress, and now you're in the 76ers. Don't tell me that the 76ers are a championship contender because I don't think that's right. So I don't think that's as realistic. And then the last candidate that I think is an absolute sham that the Lakers will probably end up going with just to make LeBron happy is this scrub by the name of Sam Cassell. 13 years as an assistant coach. I think if you hire a former player that has played in the league as LeBron James at one point in time, it's just going to be a LeBron James-led team. Hey, LeBron, what's the next play? What's the next play, LeBron? What do you want to do? You want to shoot the ball from half court again? Yeah, you go ahead, King. You go ahead, King. You know what I mean? That's the LeBron James method right there. Let me have the ball. Let me get my stats. That's how he plays. So all of that being said, Isaiah, I got to ask you, Quinn Snyder, Sam Cassell, Doc Rivers, what's a candidate that you like for the Lakers? Any of those names sort of stand out to you?
Well, before I answer that, I just got to ask you. So do you like Quinn Snyder?
I think Quinn Snyder is the best head coach out of the three that I just named. I think the pool of head coach candidates is going to be very, very shallow. As Gary pointed out in his article, it's very shallow in this upcoming offseason. I think coaches are really comfortable. Nick Nurse is another one. I love Nick Nurse, but I don't think that he's going to want to leave Toronto. I think he's got too much history there, but you never know.
But the reason I asked you like him, and do you like Doc Rivers? Do you respect him as a coach? Do you like him?
I'm a Lakers fan. You know why I hate Doc Rivers when he was on the Celtics. But with that being said, I think Doc Rivers is a great head coach.
Okay, so that makes sense.
One of the 15 greatest of all time, according to
there's a reason I ask. Okay, so that's why you want Doc Rivers on the Lakers. But let me tell you something, okay? If you like Quinn Snyder, you don't want him on this team right now. This is why I just kind of like sat back and listened to you because you said like, yeah, these guys want to come here and they want to win a championship. Nobody's coming to the Lakers and winning a championship in the next 2 years, 3 years. Doesn't matter who you bring in. You could bring yourself in there. You could get Greg Popovich to come over. You could get Phil Jackson out of retirement. Whatever you want to do, nothing is going to fix. Like, there's not a single coach that could fix this. It makes sense that you want Doc Rivers because Doc Rivers, if you want to put him through stressful situations, get him closer to retirement, maybe that's what you want to do because that's what you're going to do to Doc Rivers if he comes and coaches the Lakers, okay? So my thing is, I don't think it's going to be that big of a selection. I really don't. I mean, I know it's the Lakers, but think about the stress that you have to live under. And according to a lot of reports, they never really gave Frank Vogel a chance to really coach because he was just taking orders from the front office, from the Rambuses and all these guys, from LeBron James. So you're talking about, you just said coaching LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Russell Westbrook. All I felt was a bunch of gray hairs growing out my hair. And like, that is a stressful situation. It's either that or the president of the United States. Like one of those jobs is the toughest.
Yeah,
so,
it's tough. It's tough.
So,
but you're telling me if the Lakers get, because Frank Vogel in that first season, when he was with the Lakers and they won that championship, that was a defensive team. And Frank Vogel was a defensive head coach. In that first year, that was the formula. You're telling me Doc Rivers or Quinn Snyder, if you're someone that's a free agent and you see a promising name, an experienced name. I'm not going to Lakers if I'm being coached by Sam Castle. You might as well tell me I'm being coached by LeBron James. Sam Castle, who? There's a reason you've never been a head coach in this league. There's a reason you've been an assistant for 13 years. But if I'm the Lakers and LeBron James says, I really want to make the decisions here. Give me a puppet. Give me a puppet. Someone to keep my hand around. That's going to be Sam Castle. That's a realistic signing, I think. But if you want to go for a championship, you give me Doc Rivers with the combo of LeBron James. Oh, sign, seal, delivered. I'll put all the money I can on that.
I tell you right now, it wouldn't make a difference, Steph. It would not make a difference right now, as currently constructed. Even if you reconstruct this team this offseason, there's not an answer. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So 2 years, 3 years, maybe down the line, you need somebody that's going to build. Like, you got to kind of start over. That's basically what I'm telling you. Because, look, the league is getting better. There's nothing you can do. The Warriors are going to get better. You got Klay Thompson coming back.
Here we go with the
He's
Warriors.
Gonna be healthy. You got the Phoenix Suns. I don't think they're going anywhere. The Denver Nuggets got Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. coming back with Joker. There's nothing the Lakers can do except hope for a 7th seed. LeBron James is going to be a year older. Anthony Davis can't stay on the court. If you keep Russell Westbrook, like Malik Monk, give him credit. He's played really well. But, Dev, I'm sorry to tell you, I would like to be the king of optimism here, but there's no answer here.
You can't start over. Like you said, LeBron James is getting a year older. It is now or it is never.
He needs to leave this mess that he created.
Here we go. And
he probably created it, but he needs to go.
And I said this at the beginning of this, or not at the beginning, but about halfway through the season, we started seeing cracks in the Lakers. I said, once LeBron James is off this team, and I don't think LeBron James is going to retire as a Laker, mark my words, we're going to clip this right now. LeBron James will not retire with the LA Lakers.
No
he will leave to go play with his son, or he will leave the minute that Steph Curry calls him.
Yeah.
It's bound to happen.
Absolutely.
He's just going to go ring chasing at this point, because when you're not even a top – I'll be honest with you, after this last season – I don't even know if I have LeBron James as my second greatest player of all time. I don't even know if I have him as my third, my fourth, my fifth.
We're in year 18, Dev. I mean, maybe your 6th greatest Laker. I don't know, but like in terms
how
of
can you be the 6th greatest Laker
I'm not thinking
but yet
about
you're the
it.
second greatest basketball player?
Listen.
It's not possible. Their numbers don't match up.
Maybe the 6th greatest of the decade. Who knows? Okay,
Yeah.
but let me just tell you. Listen. You could do so much. This is LeBron James. He's literally like, he's in his 18th year. Like, you cannot expect much more from him. So yeah, he is not going to retire a Laker. I could have told you that a while ago. He's not going to retire a Laker. That's for sure. He might retire a Thunder. Maybe a Warrior. I mean, oh my goodness, please let that happen. That would be like just 1 year, because I don't want it to completely break the league. But LeBron James with Steph Curry, oh my goodness, that would be so fun to watch.
You know what's going to be great is when a team like the Thunder draft LeBron James, his son, and then LeBron James signs a 1-year deal to go play with the Thunder. And that, I don't even know, with a 43-year-old LeBron James, what that team is going to look like. And LeBron James is going to be hucking up half-court shots at 43 years old. It's going to be like I'm watching the Globetrotters all of a sudden.
And they'll probably be playing the Lakers in the play-in. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, look, there is no answer, Dev. I'm not trying to rain on your parade. Like, I'm not trying to kick you while you're down. I do believe if you're the Lakers, you will bounce back eventually. You will, because it's just the Lakers. People want to go there. But right now, this is like an atrocity. Like, this is so bad. And it's not like you have a lot of flexibility. It's not like you have picks. It's not like, what can you do? You got a $40 million contract on Russell Westbrook right there. Like, this is not a good situation, Dev. So basically, now to answer your question, who do I think would be the head coach? I don't think it matters. It's basically what I'm telling you. It doesn't matter who you bring in. Save some money, bring in the lower class guy, younger that can handle the stress, something like that.
Let me ask you this. Doc Rivers signs with the LA Lakers as the head coach on a 5-year deal.
No.
The team, let's say this is not the identical roster. Let's say there's alterations. Let's say Russell Westbrook's gone. They add a couple more shooters, let's say. Buy or sell that this is a top 7 seed in the NBA Western Conference next season.
Is that the ceiling now? The top 7 seed?
I just need the playoffs. I just need the playoffs. Let LeBron work after the playoffs.
No. See, Dev, you're a Yankee fan. Okay. You don't just need the playoffs. You need a championship. That's what it's about. Okay. So listen, look, Doc Rivers had Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, and they fell to your Lakers, right? Didn't they? No, they didn't even get there.
Yeah.
So, look, it doesn't matter, Dev, right now. It just doesn't. I'm sorry
Gary,
to say, okay.
Gary seems to disagree. Gary, the last sentence he puts is something on the lines of he thinks that if the Lakers make enough moves this offseason, they're going to be right back in the playoffs making some noise next season. So I think me and him are both right on this. I think the Lakers are going to be back next season. They're going to be a playoff team. They just have to be smarter about their approach, because look at the big mistakes they made. They made two big mistakes. Mistake number one, you should have given up Russell Westbrook when you had the chance for John Wall. I'll take John Wall any day of the week. I don't even know how productive he's going to be. He's not hurt anymore. He's just sitting out. You know what I mean? Yeah. Mistake number two, and Lord help me, this might be the biggest mistake I've ever seen in modern history basketball. You had the chance to give up Talen Horton-Tucker for Kyle Lowry. There's a reason they have a statue of Kyle Lowry outside of Toronto right now. Kyle Lowry is a Hall of Fame player. And so you had the opportunity to go get Kyle Lowry. Tell me that this team, if they had Kyle Lowry instead of Talen Horton-Tucker, they'd be in the playoffs right now. There would be no play-in tournament. They would be a top 7 seed for sure.
Absolutely. Well, you know what? Let me rethink that. No, they wouldn't, because Anthony Davis was still hurt. LeBron James is still in and out. Now, if you told me they were all going to be healthy and next season, yeah, that's the thing. But the thing is, they won't be healthy, okay? LeBron James is a year older, and Anthony Davis, I mean, I hope he could – I'm not rooting against him. I want him to be healthy. I want to see what Anthony Davis can do. I want the Lakers in the playoffs. That they make it – the NBA is better when the Lakers are relevant, okay? But I'm sorry. I go back to what I was saying. Yeah, would they have been better off with Kyle Lowry? Yes. Playoff team, maybe 8th seed.
There's a short list of people that are on my dog water list that we talked about in one of the first episodes.
No, don't do it.
Talen Horton-Tucker is on the dog water list. Don't do it. Come on. Talen Horton-Tucker is absolutely dog water at basketball.
Stop it. Did you see that move the other day? Stop it. Like, don't do that to him, okay? Look, you're directing your frustration at the wrong man, okay?
No. It's the right man, trust me. He's one of the many.
He's going to get traded to the Wizards. He's going to go off and, become
– okay, Kyle Kuzma 2.0.
Yeah, maybe you could get Kuzma back now that he's proven himself.
No, Lord help me if the Lakers got Kyle Kuzma back. And so let's transition to this last topic. We got a few more minutes. We're going to be talking about the biggest regular season surprise, something that happened in the regular season you just did not see coming. What is your biggest regular season surprise that you saw from this past season?
It's hard to say because I got different kinds of surprises. Like, I'm surprised that Ben Simmons didn't play a single game. I'm surprised with that. I'm surprised the Lakers didn't figure it out in a sense, because I did think eventually you got 3 guys that are just going to – eventually, like LeBron James would just figure it out. It didn't happen. I'm surprised about my Knicks being as bad as they were. I didn't expect them to repeat last season. I'm surprised that Julius Randle hasn't worked out. Anyway, but the one I think I'm most surprised with, it's almost, I don't mean to be disrespectful, Ja Morant, because I knew he was going to be good.
Yeah.
But I didn't know he was going to be this great, where I'm talking like he might soon be in the top 5 player. Like, give it time, like not yet, but I think that might be the biggest surprise to me. Or, I mean, to be honest, things have kind of worked out. Aside from the Lakers, I just don't want to go back to them. No. But, that is probably my biggest surprise, is that, like, it was as bad as it's been. And the fact that, like, nothing was figured out. That I think I'm going to go with the Lakers. But there was a lot of things that didn't plan out the way I thought. But my Knicks probably hurts the most if you ask me which that one was. Because I didn't think –
that's – a lot of good points. I think you're right. There's a lot of different surprises, and it just depends on which way you want to go. Yeah. One that I had was that the actual blockbuster – I don't know the last time we've had this big of a blockbuster was that James Harden for Ben Simmons swap. I think that caught the whole entire league by surprise, because at the start of the season, if you told me that you were going to get a team with Kyrie Irving, James Harden, and Kevin Durant all healthy, ready to go – obviously you had Kyrie with the COVID-19 restrictions, which have since then been opened up to pretty much the entire league, I would have thought that was a runaway case. You know what I mean? And the 76ers were a contender in the Eastern Conference, and they had Ben Simmons, and they had Seth Curry, and they had Joel Embiid, among other names. I would have thought it would have been maybe those 2 teams squaring off against each other in the Eastern Conference Finals. And that swap really changed the dynamic of the league. James Harden is putting up almost identical numbers, but I think we can both agree that he is a much better fit in Philly than he is ever been in the city of Brooklyn. And then at the same time, the Brooklyn Nets are in a position where they have one of the best odds in the Eastern Conference to represent in the NBA Finals. And yet the player that they swapped for, Ben Simmons, hasn't even played a single game all season, like you said. And so imagine how good that team's going to be when they do get Ben Simmons back. This might not be the year that they compete for a title, but next season you get a full offseason with Ben Simmons to get healthy and to get back on the court. I know he's been dealing with back issues and all this other stuff. The Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia Sixers, man, I never thought that swap was going to happen with two teams that are so close in competition, because there's a huge risk for both sides to give the other team a huge asset like that. You are risking a lot. Can you imagine the Brooklyn Nets at the time? You're giving the 76ers James Harden, one of the best one-on-one players in modern NBA history, for Ben Simmons, who hasn't played a single game because he's been holding out from the 76ers. So I thought it was just really fascinating. I thought it was a win-win for both sides. I told Gary this at the NBA trade deadline. I thought it was a win-win for both sides. Both teams got better because of it. And I would love to see these two teams play each other in the actual playoffs. I think that would be one of the most exciting matchups we've seen in a long time.
I don't think it's going to happen, but please, I'll take that,
That would be nice, though. That would be nice. And yeah, as we wrap up, that's episode 16 for us. We went over a lot. We gave a lot of Lakers drama, a lot of Lakers criticism. I feel like this is my therapy session. This is what I needed. This is my one time a week I can release my frustration.
You opened your third eye. That's great.
Yeah. And so we'll be back every single week. Like we said, next week, 5:00 Eastern Standard Time here at D from 3. You can check out all of our content. Like I said, tomorrow we have one of our best pieces. We're collaborating as we speak, putting together our power rankings of the NBA playoffs. It's going to include all the play-in teams, which teams can make some noise, which teams are in the best position to win it all this season. So make sure you check that out on theathletehub.org. Every other week, make sure you're checking out Free Baseball, all of our other shows that we have going for us. And yeah, we'll check you guys out next week.
Take care, guys. And